Ladies and gentlemen, hacking hotspots with Edward. Here we go. Louder.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank everyone for just taking the time. I know this has been a long day. You know, we're about to wrap up DEF CON. This is my first DEF CON, and it's so surreal to even be here. So I just want to thank the entire community, all the hardworking staff and volunteers. So this talks about hacking hotspots, pre-auth remote code execution, arbitrary SMS, and adjacent attacks on 5G and LTE routers. I'm going to go ahead and just move forward. So before I get started, I just want to go over an agenda. We have the staple, who am I? I'm going to go over some related work. When it comes to the devices I'll be referring to, the Wi-Fi routers, we're going to be talking about Tuoshi and KuWFi 5G and 4G LTE routers. It's a good chance I didn't pronounce either of those two correctly, but please bear with me here. We're also going to have some demos, and we're going to wrap it up with some conclusions. Generally speaking, this is going to go from left to right. There's a few cases where it won't be that linear, but we'll get it moving. So I want to give a quick who am I. This is pretty compository at this point, but I am currently a senior cybersecurity analyst at a Fortune 500 company. But my previous job, I worked as an information security analyst at Sedara, and honestly, it was during that time working in their security operations center that I was really able to cut my teeth by looking into IoT and Android devices. And it's really during the last 6 months while I was there that I really started to do more deep dives, and you'll see the research that is the fruit of that. I also gave a couple other talks on, I gave a talk on ShmooCon in regards to Android inter-app collusion, and I also gave a few talks at B-Sides. So as I get into related work, we're kind of just jump into it. So this particular model is not one of the devices in question. I just want to reference a previous DEF CON 27 talk, reverse engineering 4G hotspots for fun, bugs, net financial loss. I'd really like to put some emphasis on the net financial loss, because honestly, I bought dozens of devices, and this has only been a net loss, but I'm very happy to be speaking in front of you tonight. So one of the crux of this slide specifically is the idea of manufacturers shipping items with just insecure firmware. In this case, he specifically highlights insecure API endpoints. Now, I want you to look closer at that Go form, because you're going to see that is a recurring theme. Generally speaking, when you see Go form, it's usually one of two things. It's usually either raw-link or Realtek SDKs where you'll see like a Go web form embedded. And as we move forward, you'll see that this particular package has had widespread systematic issues across many manufacturers. So speaking of the later lyric, I'm actually going to be talking about this reverse chronologically. I'll be talking about 5G, 4G, and LTE devices. But I want to start with this post, because essentially what happened, and the reason why I say I'm going to start reverse chronologically, is that there was a point where I had already compromised several devices by this manufacturer, but I wanted the impact of my most recent research to show these kind of errors on more modern 5G equipment. So I read this post. It says, the problem is that this guy had this preservo. He basically states that he did find a vulnerability of the device, but he liked to have root access. But there's a fundamental issue with this whole idea of giving the device root access. It essentially has a restricted shell account. So I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. I found one of these devices for about $40 on eBay. So I'm like, this is a really good opportunity to test it out, but I want to continue on my OSINT and just get a little more background. So previously, when I mentioned that there was a default credentials, another researcher also indicated that in CVE 2024 48442. And it's a little, it doesn't quite specifically state that this is actually a restricted shell, but in his write-up he goes over it. Now, another thing I'd like to bring up here is that he also found a command injection vulnerability using an AT command. Essentially, AT command are phone modem commands that allow you to do things like send SMS messages and just provide a lot of configuration things for devices. We're going to go ahead and move forward because there's a lot of information I'm going to try to squeeze into this 20 minutes here. All right, so this is actually the device in question. Now, at the beginning, it starts off slightly out of order, but things start to smooth over as you move forward. A lot of people may not have heard this company, but they actually ship a lot of products. If you go on AliExpress, you'll see a lot of devices by Tuoshi, and yeah, in this case they're shipping with 5G chips, and I'll be going over why this is a problem. So let's take a look at this Go form here. Now, if you just go to the MITRE CV website and search for Go form, when I first did this, I got about 743 results. This is just, Go form appearing in like the URL or affiliated. And then, as of July 1st, I searched again. We're up to 912. So I can't imagine by now it's probably over 1,000, but this is definitely a systematic issue where manufacturers are just using SDKs not so responsibly. And here's just a little breakdown. You got a little pie chart here. As you can see here, there's one larger offender, the Tinda, but you see D-Link is runner-up. And this is just basically a breakdown just based on the amount of hits, amount of CVE hits when I would search for Go form. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and move forward. We're gonna jump into a device here. So I want you guys to take a look at this web request. This is actually the 5G device that I showed previously. And there's a few things are gonna spot out that you're gonna notice right away. They're a little bit odd. So you do see that Go form, which should just be the IOC all by itself. There's probably an issue with the device, even if you just see Go form present. It's certainly worth taking a better look. But look at the username. Username equals admin. Well, that's perfectly fine if there was legitimate authentication. But if you look on the right where you see like ace_settings, if you squint, it kind of looks like a session token, but it's not. It's just UX collapsing the menu. So basically, username equals admin is enough to authenticate completely broken access control, but it still gets a little bit worse than this. If you look down, you'll see NTP server 0. That's for network time protocol server. In this particular device, I did find a command injection with that parameter specifically, and I'm going to go over why, how this manifested and why this is a problem, and this will be the first example. Now, because essentially authentication is broken, and this is an example of command injection, this will be our first pre-auth remote code execution. Now, sorry, this is not going to be like a sexy binary example, but here's the thing. It was so easy to do, and just think how many devices are impacted by this kind of problem. So we're going to move forward to the Ghidra disassembly. When it comes to Tuoshi, both their 5G and 4G were essentially running the same binary. They're almost identical. There's a few differences, but this code remains the same, and essentially shows how you can take the network time protocol IP1 and how it's passed directly into a shell command. Very straightforward. So we're gonna go ahead and just take a look and show you that. Oh, that's one moment. I think the demo is in a different section here. As I download the slides, 1 second. I may need some assistance if someone can help me out materially. Because I uploaded all the demos, so if there's anyone available, just please reach out to me 1 moment. But I think I'm gonna resolve this before that's necessary, so just bear with me here. All right, as long as these hit, all right. Complete execution. All right, oh, that's no cute, that's no cute. Okay. You know what? If I have to log back into my Google account, I will totally do it, but I think my demos don't want to open now. That's cute. Sorry, I'm a little distracted here right now. All right. Gracias. All right. All right, we're gonna get to demos here soon enough. Yeah. What? I don't understand what's going on here. Okay. Here's rename. Come on. I'm pretty sure I have right-click rename. Here we go. Okay. Here. Okay. Oh. Jesus. All right. Definitely gonna edit this part out of the final. Yeah. All right. Thank you for bearing with me here today. All right, so now I'm just going to go over what you're actually seeing in this demo. This demo is pretty straightforward. It just shows me getting a reverse shell, and you also see the contents of the little quick and dirty Python script I ran to do it. Essentially, it's just copying the request. Actually, all these headers aren't even required, but it was a quick fix, and we'll see it in action here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run the script. Have my reverse shell, and bam, there we go, root. Very a little anticlimactic here, but this is our first example. All right. And because I lost a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. But this is essentially what you see here. The contents of the root shell. I also get the root password. Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget. There's a reason why I wanted to show the entire POC. Another issue with this device is that the root password was not even AES, it was DES, and the password was essentially admin exclamation point 2 as a hard shell that can't be turned off. Is pretty bad. So let's go ahead and get back to the slide deck before I lose you guys here. All right, we're just gonna keep it simple for right now here. So as you can see here, there's the contents, there's the password. I cracked it, admin exclamation point. Let's go ahead and move on because I have a lot more to go over here. And if you were wondering, like the relevance of this, whether or not you could actually access it over the internet, even though these devices are essentially designed to use like 5G as like a backup, there were some issues appears with like APN settings, and you could reach these devices over the internet, even though you're supposed to be on essentially a LAN. They were reachable. And here's a login portal if you just want to take a better look at. And essentially this device could be compromised. This is not my device. I did not test this device, but it certainly appears to be vulnerable, and it's definitely wide open to the WAN. All right, now let's go ahead and move forward to the 4G devices, because these are part of my motivation for deciding to look at 5G devices, because these were honestly quick wins. It's essentially the same thing here, so let's show you that. All right, here. So I'm not sure if you noticed the difference, but this code is pretty similar. The only reason why the 4G devices are not impacted by the NTP parameter is simply, I'm sorry, the only reason why, is because they don't expose a field for you to actually inject it, but the code is still in there. And essentially the same thing. Unsanitized input. If you can parse that directly into a shell, then you get RCE, and both of those devices are vulnerable. This POC works on both devices, and it's almost universal across that manufacturer. Let's move forward to the next demo here. Demo 2, show that in action. All right. All right, so this is pretty straightforward. It essentially shows me trying to initially log into the device without knowing the password until I'm able to successfully show the command injection. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and run the script. It's not super visual. Right here, I'm just showing the contents of the script, just for reference here. And let's go ahead and just skip a little forward because I am a little short on time here. All right, so what you see here is failed password attempts because I don't have the correct thing. And then, yeah, we get root access. So let's move a little forward here. I do apologize because I'm trying to get through all this. But here I just wanted to show the route, just to show that, you know, the fact that this was exposed over the internet and over the WAN as well. So in my opinion, pretty bad, pretty bad. Like I said, this is a short talk. I'm not going to go super deep into the weeds, but I wanted to address a systematic issue across many manufacturers. All right, so we're on to the second vendor, KuWFi. They have a few products here. I'm going to be showing 3 4G devices and 1 5G device at the very end here. And you know, this is a standard model GC111. I've noticed that in terms of industry, a lot of these devices are used in vehicles. I've even heard situations where these devices could be used to power like motor cameras. So. Yeah, I had a few issues with this device. You know, when you're trying many different paths to exploitation, I quickly realized that this device used canaries. And you know, I'm not a binary ninja, so had to make do with what I could. But you know, given enough opportunity, you'll be surprised what you can find. There's 3 vulnerabilities I found here. And yeah, in this case, because I said this is very condensed, I'm going to just explain what's going on here. Essentially, when I look at most devices, there's usually 2 quick, easy paths for command injection. When it comes to routers and embedded devices, it's usually ping, traceroute, or Wi-Fi. It seems really common that both of those 2 things are piped into shell commands on the back end, and Wi-Fi seems to be just as, I mean, I find devices where both the parameter was vulnerable to command injection and like cross-site scripting, so certainly interesting. But in this case, you see, if you take the Wi-Fi name, you can directly pipe it into a shell command, and because the whole authentication is admin, is username equals admin, well, it's essentially unauthenticated. That's not authentication to me. That is certainly broken. Can you see them now? Okay. All right, so this is pretty straightforward. We see that vulnerable endpoint, and we see goal form essentially in the URL path here, and yeah, no, in this example, because I essentially already had root access device because this device shipped with hard-coded telnet admin root. So it was very easy to get feedback to test to see if my command injection because I already had root access. Now that account was hard-coded, but essentially for this device, the Wi-Fi parameter was vulnerable to command injection, and that gives me pre-auth RCE. I'm not gonna bore you guys with this whole demo because I'm kind of short on time here, but we're gonna move forward because that was pretty straightforward. All right, here's the next device. This device is actually a little bit more interesting. It's another 4G device. But it's a device that I wasn't initially able to get fully pre-auth, but maybe one theoretical one. So let's see what I'm talking about here. So I did find another vulnerable parameter to command injection. In this case, it's an APN setting. It's essentially part of the embedded Android package within the device because it has an embedded hotspot. So when you're set the pin code, allowed command injection, but this thing was vulnerable to both command injection and buffer overflow. I actually got the buffer overflow to work after I realized it was vulnerable to command injection, but it was certainly interesting to see the parameter vulnerable to both because essentially, if you see at the bottom, you'll see call shell, AC stack. You'll see that this information is sent to the stack without verifying the lints, and I'm going to show a demo of how this can be a problem. Demo 4. So for this device, although I did find a command injection, the command injection required authentication. So this is going to be an example of a cross-site request forgery in order to trigger the command injection, which is semi-unauthenticated. I guess it really depends on, yeah, so 1 second. All right, 4, wait, make sure I'm on the right slide. All right, there we go. All right. All right, so you see this, see the embedded web form and the website. It looks a little bit dated, but, oh, wait, am I showing the right demo? Okay, yeah, so we're gonna do this a little backwards. In this case, this is gonna be an example of me breaking the device. And I was not able to recover even after trying to connect to UART because I overwrit too much memory. But this is an example of in this case, a buffer overflow. There's no stack canary, so there's theoretical RCE via binary exploitation here. This is just an example of denial of service, and I have another example of chaining the cross-site request forgery with command injection to get like quasi pre-auth RCE. So we're gonna just show that. All right. All right, so what we see here, essentially you see here is the beginning of a telnet prompt. Initially, telnet is disabled on this device, but I'm gonna go ahead and start the telnet daemon by using the cross-site request forgery. So, all right. And I'm gonna speed up here. Yeah, so at first invalid because I obviously didn't have the telnet service active, and now I'll be able to get in there. Well, besides the little typo you see on the screen, we're gonna ignore that, guys. A few more moments. All right, and we see the credentials here from an exploited administrator. So that's pretty straightforward. All right, we're gonna move forward here. All right, so this device, I'm going to show an example of the arbitrary SMS, which is part of the title here. Once again, Android is essentially baked into this device, our CPF 908. And, just to give a little context when it comes to AT commands, here's some examples of things that you can do. Having this kind of low-level control over a device can certainly lead to compromise. You can like read messages, send messages, and so forth. And I'm going to show an example of how I link all this together. I think something's out of order. Why am I? Ooh. Okay, let's try demo 6. I'm going to show you what's going on here. All right, here's my phone. All right, so the problem with this device is that essentially there's a vulnerable endpoint that allows me to have admin privileges without fully authenticating. And if you see here, it's go form again. So no authentication required. Go form is hit, and because AT commands allow you to do arbitrary things, you could force a device to send SMS messages. It can certainly be problematic, along with information disclosure. All right, so this is an example of a 5G KuWFi device, chipset Snapdragon X62, and these are a little bit more expensive. Since a lot of 5G devices usually will give you a premium over 4G, but it makes sense. We're almost at 6G at this point. I'm going to show you an example of sending an arbitrary SMS message with this device as well. We're going to go over to demo 7, and we are almost done here. All right, so now, when it comes to this device, I actually wasn't able to get a root shell on this device. I did show broken access control and the ability to exploit these vulnerable endpoints. I bought dozens of devices, usually single copies. I don't have a budget to buy multiple devices and break them the proper way that you see a lot of researchers do. So this is all me just kind of winging it on one devices only, and I wasn't willing to break it. So in this case, it just shows information disclosure initially, like you can reveal the admin password, and I think just showing passwords, allowing me to text people it's a very bad situation. And these things aren't cheap. That device is like $400 now. I bought it at $200, but it went up. Surprisingly, not exactly cheap. And you see credentials are being disclosed here, but you guys can look at this later. I'm gonna move forward just because we're short on time here. But definitely appreciate your patience here. And we have another demo. All right, so it's essentially I'm just displaying the contents of the Python script. I'm just going to show without being authenticated, just forcing SMS. And the thing about it is that these devices don't really advertise that you can even send SMSs in the first. So it just seems like a lot of functionality to have essentially no good keys attached to it. So. In a few moments here, you're going to see the text message. What's really interesting is that in order to test these, because these are foreign products and they use bands that aren't all available in the United States, I had to get some prepaid SIM cards, and they specifically said no data or SMS access. Yet I was able to do this. So like I thought it was interesting. Like no SMS, but it still works. So like yeah. So. Where are we at here? Bear with me. When it rains, it pours. All right. All right, so I'm just gonna go over the obviously conclusions. We have the improper access control, information disclosure, lack of input sanitization, all sorts of issues. The main thing is that I really feel like vendors should be required to have a solid software bill of materials. We simply shouldn't be in a situation in 2025. I mean, these devices I'm showing you, they're like post 2020, so still relatively new, and we're still having systematic issues across our industry. So I'm hoping this talk just, if nothing else, showed light on how easy it is to hack IoT devices, and to certainly take a look at GoForm if you see it. I want to thank you all for bearing with me here and all the hiccups I've had, and I just hope you guys enjoy the rest of DEF CON and have a great day.